Yes, people, welcome back to KGX to the ZTV. International break settings. You know what that means. Trying to find content, trying to come up with some ways to entertain the people. So, do me a favor while you guys do me a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe, turn those notifications on. And yes, we are back with the official KGX to the Z TV Premier League predictions 2025-2026 season. And as you can see up on the screen, we've got the tier maker list up. We will go through, make our predictions now that the transfer window's ended, right? I know a lot of folks like to make predictions before the season starts, but with the transfer window ending 3 games after, and then right in the international break, I always feel like it's a little bit better to judge clubs and their predicted finish based off of the most recent moves that they've done and the roster that they have going into the season. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into it. And we'll jump around. We won't go in alphabetical order, but as you can see, it looks like most of the clubs are in some sort of order down there. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into it. So what we'll do is we will go ahead and we'll do our top four maybe first, and then go from there, because I think from there, and then, or maybe we'll go from top four down to the relegation sides, and then we'll fill out the rest of them. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into it. I'm excited. Um, there might be some controversial takes. We'll revisit this at the end of the season, see how accurate our predictions are, see what kind of prognosticator, forecaster KG actually is. So let's get into it. So I think, like most people, I have Liverpool as your 2025-2026 winners. Now that's based off of what they've done in the transfer market, right? So they've added Isak, they've added Kirkez, they've added Ekitike, they've added Frimpong, they added that young Italian center back from Parma, whose name I can't remember. I think Leone. Can't remember what his first name is. And then that's already on the back of a title-winning squad. Florian Wirtz as well. Yes, it's going to take some time for all those folks to gel, but as you've seen so far in the season, they've had 3 fixtures, 3 relatively tough teams, right? So they had a Bournemouth 4-2. They had away to Newcastle 3-2, snatched it at the death. They had Arsenal at home, which they won 1-0 on a Szoboszlai free kick. So they've gotten 2 tough fixtures out the way and 1 tricky fixture, although you could say it's at home. They had a lot of emotion with the Jota ceremony, first home game of the season. But even though I do think they're a little bit light in defense, I think their attack will carry them this year. And I think that once Slot finds the right balance, I think once the dust settles, Liverpool will be your Premier League champions. Coming up close, second again, ole, ole, ole. I have the mighty Arsenal. Now I know, most folks know that I'm a Chelsea fan, Chelsea diehard fan. Um, the reasons why I have Arsenal ahead of Chelsea, and I know there's been some videos out there, some other channels that I've jumped on where some of the Chelsea fans have given me stick. But what I would say is, I think Arsenal are in a more advanced starting point, right? You can call it phase 6, phase 7, whatever the hell you want to call it. But they do have, for me, the best defense in Europe. Best when it comes to the best setup. Yes, their manager is very pragmatic. He's very defensive minded, as we saw with pretty much 3 defensive midfielders going into Anfield. But their defense and the keeper, they're solid. They have great talent. They have depth at every position. We've seen Saliba go down, but young Mosquera stepped in. Anfield was phenomenal. Didn't really miss a beat. I don't think Liverpool threatened too much from open play. Yes, the attack for them will probably take some time, right? They've got Gyökeres up top, so it's going to take some time for them to adjust to playing with an out-and-out striker. Saka's hurt, but they did bring in Madueke. They've got Eze that came in, Zubamende. So yes, I think that they've done a really, really good job of strengthening. But just like it is for Liverpool, it's going to take them some time to adjust and get things right. I do think it's going to be a pretty close race. I don't think Liverpool are head and shoulders above Arsenal, as we saw a couple weekends ago. But I do have Liverpool first, Arsenal second, with my Mighty Blues coming third. I think as I've said before, my transfer roundup video, I think we left ourselves a little bit short, but I do really, really like the squad. I do love our starting 11. I like our manager. I back our manager. I think in a one-off scenario or head-to-head, we can hang with any club in the world. The questions for us and for me is consistency. Can we improve upon last year's 69 points? Can we get up into that 80-point mark where we can really be a title challenger? Last year, we took it to December, January before the wheels fell off, and then sort of scraped a 4 at the end, although we did finish relatively strong and we thoroughly deserved it. But I do think that we have still lingering question marks on the left wing spot. 90 million spent. Garnacho, Gittins. We're going to need one of those guys to bang. We're a little bit short up top already with Delap going down, having to recall Gui. Center back as well. And then the goalkeeper situation, shaky for me. So I have us third to come. I think we'll be about 3, 4, maybe 5 points off Arsenal, but I do think that we'll be in and around the title discussion until March, April-ish, at which time I think, Liverpool, maybe even Arsenal will start to hit their stride a little bit more. And they've shown over the last few years that they can put together 10-game unbeaten streaks, 10-game winning streaks in the league and things like that. And until I see that from us, I think we'll still be slightly behind them, and I don't think we've done enough in the transfer window. Fourth, I know a lot of folks are pipping City to finish fourth. I don't really see it. I don't like their squad. Matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put them fifth. I do think they do have talent. They do have Pep, so you can never discount Pep. But I look at that defense, and I'm not impressed. I look at the keepers that they have. I like Trafford, but he's young. But then they go out and they get Donnarumma, who's not a ball-playing keeper. Is not great with his feet. So issues there. Might be some adaptation. Maybe that's planning for life after Pep. I don't rate their wingers. I'm not a huge Savio fan. I'm not a huge Doku fan. I do like Oscar Bob, but again, he's young. Hasn't really proven to be a goal scorer yet. Don't know what's going on with Foden. Cherky's out a couple months. I do like Mamouche, but he's not a left winger. Erling Haaland is what he is. Midfield's pretty solid with Rodri. Hopefully, for his intents and purposes, that he gets back to full fitness. But yeah, a lot of concerns. I don't rate their fullbacks. I don't rate Kusanov. I don't rate Ait-Nouri in terms of defensively. So I think they're going to struggle a little bit. And that's why I put them fifth. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to jump out there. I'm putting Newcastle fourth. And I know, yes, they lost Isak. They're in the Champions League, but I do, ultimately at the end of the day, and I know they were rejection FC this window, but I do like the signings that they brought in. They brought in a striker, Waldemar from Germany, who's got a lot of talent. Saw him in the under 21s. Very, very good profile, very good technical player. A lot of upside. They brought in Visa, who's a certified goal scorer in this league. 19 non-penalty goals last year. They brought in Thiaw to help their center back in from Milan. They brought in Elanga to give them a little bit more pace. They brought in Jacob Murphy. I think when it's all said and done, I think they had a good window. I like Eddie Howe. Newcastle away at St. James is always going to be tough. I think they're deeper than they were last year. I think that they're going to have a pretty decent year. Maybe a shout for a domestic cup just like they did last year. But yeah, I like what I've seen from them so far. We'll jump down to the relegation zone. We'll say, I think, it's going to be tough for some of these clubs, as some of these clubs just haven't strengthened as much as I don't want to say strengthened, but they haven't made some signings as strong as what we've seen in the past couple of years. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put Leeds down here. Saw them versus Arsenal. Saw them versus Newcastle this past weekend, which they were much better than they were versus Arsenal. Not too high on them. They do got Ampadu from Chelsea that I've always been a big fan of, but he's injured already, and I just think they're going to struggle with just the quality in the Premier League. Also, going down, I'm going to throw. Oh, it's tough. It's tough when you think about this, right? I want to throw Brentford down in there, but we'll actually no, we'll table that a little bit. Well, yeah, we'll jump around. It is what it is. This isn't set in stone in terms of a specific order for this particular video. But I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna put Spurs 6th. Or I do like their window. I do like bringing Kolo Muani in on loan, especially for Solanke, who's just can't seem to get healthy. I'm not a huge Mateus Tel fan, but Kudus is a stud. I do like the signing of Paulinho. They needed a 6, especially with Bissouma being very shaky. I'm a big Thomas Frank fan. I like pragmatic managers, and I know that they got peppered versus Bournemouth on the last weekend, but they've shown some of their quality so far versus PSG, versus Man City, and I just think that this have a really sound squad that if tactically if Frank gets it right, which I think he will, I think they'll be in and around that top 4, sniffing around. But ultimately, I think that they will get 6, which is probably going to be enough for Champions League. So I know this is a little bit right off because this is what it is at the beginning of the season. This 5th spot could easily be a Champions League spot, depending on the multiplier and the coefficient and all those things. So that could change a little bit, but I still do have Spurs 6th, Man City 5th. 7th, I'm going to put United in there. 1 game a week, which a lot of people say is a benefit. It can also be a detriment, because if you lose 1 game a week, that's a lot of noise, and we know there's no club in this country, in England, that has more PR than Man United. So we'll go ahead and put them 7th. I liked, that they addressed their biggest concern from last year, which for me was goal scoring. So they brought in Cunha, they brought in Mbeumo, they brought in Sesko, who the jury's still out on, but he's a young player. But I think that they've got 2 really, really talented, proven players in Cunha and Mbeumo that will ultimately have enough quality to overcome what I think is a poor manager in a poor system, a poor midfield. We'll see about the keeper. They brought in Lemens from Royal Antwerp. Don't know too much about him, but I do like their defense. I think their defense is fairly solid. So I'm going to put them as 7th. 8th, right behind them, I'm going to put Aston Villa. Some late moves in the transfer window, bringing Sancho in on loan, going out there with a loan with an obligation to buy for Harvey Elliott, Ollie Watkins, McGinn, Onana. Who else is Tielemans in the midfield? I think they're pretty solid. Unai Emery, even though they haven't got off to the best start, is a good manager. So I'm gonna put them at 8th. They will have they do have Europa League football this year, so they're gonna have to juggle 2 competitions, whether or not they're deep enough. But they were also able to hold on to Emi Martinez, who fallen off definitely from the 2022 World Cup, but is still overall a very, very, very solid keeper. Whew, it's tough, man. A lot of these clubs that are right there in the middle, there's a lot of question marks about them. So clubs like Forest, who I think are very, they've got a lot of talent, but is Nuno going to stay? Is the potential cloud floating over Nuno, is that going to be enough to sort of make them lose points and for Nuno to lose his job? Will the next manager come in? If that does happen, will he be able to right the ship or steady the ship? I think so. And I'm going to put them right here because I do think that they've got a lot of new signings that are pretty good signings overall. Murray Hutchinson came in. Douglas Luiz came in. So some players that have, even though Hutchinson's only had 1 year in the Prem at Ipswich, players like Douglas Luiz have proved it in this league. So I'm going to put them there at the ninth in the league. Right behind them, I'm going to put Pallison. I'm a big Glasner fan. They stifled us week 1 or match day 1. Really solid squad, but losing as a late, playing in the Europa League, will they be able to balance both? I think it's going to be a little tough for them, but they were able to hold on to their club captain. So I'm going to put them in 10th just off the strength of the core that they have, the experience that they have, the solid foundation that they have, the ability for Glasner to sort of get the most out of what they have. And they've been a selling club in the past, and they've sort of stayed around that. But I'm a big fan of Glasner, and Crystal Palace is always a tough one. Right behind them, I'm going to put Bournemouth. Areola, top manager. Semenyo, stud. Kluivert's pretty good coming off the bench. Evan Nielsen, if he can sort of hit the ground running like he did when he first came into the league. I think that they've got enough. Yes, they lost a lot of their back line. Husin, Kerkez, the other center back who end up going to PSG. But I'm going to put a lot of faith into Areola to sort of hang around that mid-table level. Right behind them, I'm going to put, this is a tough one, but I'm going to put Everton in there because I like the moves that they've made. Moyes seems to lessen the reins a little bit when it comes to the players like Jack Grealish, who needs a little bit more freedom. I like Ndoye on the other side. They've got Barry up there up top. Whether or not he can get the goals and produce, but I think they're going to have a pretty decent season, first season at the new Goodison. I think that they're gonna, I think they're gonna be in and around that mid-table, but on their day, a pretty good side and a pretty hard side to beat. This is tough. This is really tough. I'm gonna put Burnley down here at 19th. I just don't think they have the quality. Although I watched them the first week versus Spurs, and that first 20 minutes they were really on Spurs. And I thought that the 2-0 or the 3-0 kind of flattered Spurs a little bit in that first one. But again, another squad that they did bolster with some talent. I know Chelsea sold them a bunch of players, Broja, Ugochukwu, and then Bashir Humphreys earlier in the summer. But I just think it's going to be tough for them to manage the quality and the jumping quality that it is from the Championship to the Premier League. This is tough. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna put Brighton here, right behind Everton. Good squad. I know Baliba hasn't really hit the ground running. I think he's coming off of a little bit of an injury, but they do have a lot of talent, a lot of experience in this league, a lot of know-how. They've got their model and they sort of stick with it with being a selling club, but they were able to hold on to the likes of Baliba. Up top, they're going to need Danny Welbeck to stay healthy, especially since João Pedro's gone to Chelsea. But yeah, they're a club that, again, trips to the Amex aren't the easiest, and they've proven that they can give big sides, like they just beat Man City, big sides a little bit of trouble. Down here, also in the relegation zone, this is tough, man, because I'm really thinking about West Ham and I'm thinking about Wolves. West Ham had a nice little win, 3-0 win over Forest going into the international break that shocked the hell out of everyone, which sort of they needed. Graham Potter needed that. Their fan base needed that. They made some changes in the midfield to sort of solidify it, and they've needed to sort of replace the likes of Souček for a little while. But that's just one game. Can they consistently kind of keep it up? That I don't know. I don't know. So I'm gonna put West Ham. I'm gonna put West Ham 19th or 18th. I'm sorry. And I'm gonna tip them to go down. I just don't think that. I think that a few bad results is gonna see Potter lose his job, and I think from there it'll be a struggle. And I think they'll probably get in like a Premier League old dog, like a Sam Dyche or somebody like that, to try to steady the ship and just to kind of keep them afloat until they get a long-term manager in place. But they've really struggled with what kind of club do they want to be? Do they want to be, do they want to stay up and just, kind of grind out results like they did under Moyes, even though Moyes won them a European trophy? The times that they've hired managers to sort of play progressive football, Lopetegui and a Graham Potter haven't really worked out, and maybe that's just not right fit for their clubs. But I'm gonna have them at 18th. Um, I'm gonna put Fulham up here. Marco Silva, fantastic manager. They gave us trouble on the weekend. Good squad. They were, still waiting to get like players like Anthony Robinson back in fitness. They brought in that guy Kevin from Shakhtar, so we'll see how he is. Maybe he brings a little pace and a little creativity to their side. But yeah, Craven Cottage, relatively tough place to go, right down the street from us. I'm gonna put them there off the strength uh, of Marco Silva. Behind them, Brentford. Brentford's a similar kind of situation as Brighton and as Fulham, where they've been picked over a little bit, more so Brighton than Fulham, but they've been picked over. They lost Mbeumo, they lost Wisa, so that's about almost 30 league goals, or no, almost 40 league goals right there between those two guys. They still have Sade, which I like. Their new manager, they won, I think their last match, or maybe match week 2. I think they'll be floating above the relegation zone, but ultimately I think they're going to have enough wherewithal and enough know-how, and I think they have a little bit more quality than the Burnleys and the Leeds to sort of keep them up. Ahead of them, I'm going to put Sunderland. Again, Sunderland made a lot of moves. We had Mark Greedy there, but then he came back on loan. Whether or not they can get a lot of their new pieces gelling, because they did make a lot of moves in the market, that will be the ultimate precursor to whether or not they stay up. But Stadium Light used to be a very tricky away trip for them, and I'm going to back them to stay up. But I think it'll be close. And same with Wolves. I'm going to put Wolves right above them at that 17th spot. Lost the likes of Cunha, but they were able to hold on to Strand Larson. Molyneux, tough away ground, can be a bogey team for some folks. They still got a pretty decent midfield. Some of the Portuguese leftovers that they have, but I think between these clubs, Brentford, Sunderland, Wolves, West Ham, Luton, Leeds, and Burnley, there's going to be a lot of chopping and changing. Key injuries here and there could kind of flip this a little bit, but ultimately, I think this is how I see the Premier League weighing out this year. Obviously, January transfer window could kind of throw a wrench into things, injuries, of course, and we've seen a lot of players go down already. The likes of Levi Colwell's injured, Foden's out, a lot of Saka as well. A lot of changes here and there and fluctuations. But ultimately, this is how I see the Premier League playing out. So let me know what you guys think of my prediction. Let me know, what you guys think in terms of, who you think is going to win the league, who you think is going to get relegated, who's going to be in that top 4 spot. And of course, things could change, right? We know that 5th spot could be a European spot, which most likely will, because of the strong European coefficients that a lot of these clubs carry. And then we know that 6th could ultimately be Europa, and then 7th and 8th could potentially be Conference League, or 7th could be up here. But then, FA Cup winners could throw a bone into it. The Carabao Cup winners could also throw a bone into it. So let me know. But before you do, hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn those notifications on. We'll try to get a couple more videos out this week to sort of kill the time in between our next match when we go away to Brentford. But let me know. And as always, appreciate everybody for stopping